Light by Eva Figes. Gotta say, I really enjoyed this one. As you may have guessed, it's about lamps. Yep. Finally, a book about lamps. That's a quote from Susan Sontag. Not really. Ironically, the presence of lamps makes the book light darker. So what is this book? What do we got on the cover there? A painting by Monet. And this book is about Monet. It's about one day in the life of Monet. This is, I believe, a 1983 book. Yeah. Written by a very interesting sounding writer named Eva Figes. And she had a daughter who was a successful writer, and also a son who was a successful historian and author. Mother of Kate Figes and Orlando Figes. And I've had a book by Orlando Figes at one point, this A People's Tragedy. He has a very controversial take on the Russian Revolution, and more Western liberal than communist, I think. But I like to read history, and I can handle a perspective when I know what it is. And her daughter was a writer too. That's cool. Her daughter died as well, recently-ish, of cancer, and so did she. I was reading about them online. But Eva Figes's most famous book is actually a feminist nonfiction work called Patriarchal Attitudes. But this book was way just good as a work of art. I mean, obviously she did a ton of research to recreate this day in 1900 in the household of Claude Monet. But this is the second time I've read this book. This is a part of the paperback case, rereading it. That project, I'm reading all of the paperback case, you may recall. This one, which I'm also restocking because I moved a bunch of single author works out. But back to Light. This was a very good book. The real star of this book is Light. This book is correctly titled. I used to have another book called Light, and it was a science book, and it was the most technical and hard to understand work. I mean, I think it was written for a general audience to potentially engage with, but I was like, this is so specialist. I don't think I've ever been so challenged by a work as that other book called Light. But this book is a pleasure and a joy, and its descriptions of light, her descriptions of light in every chapter are incredible. I was underlining like crazy reading this book. From the Guardian Fiction Prize in 1967 for Winter Journey, 1932 to 2012. Best known for Patriarchal Attitudes, 1970. Look, someone owned this. Christina Home. I think some bad stuff's happening with my eyesight. That's great. He began to push the wheelbarrow down the path, stomping on the gravel in gumboots. The sound faded. Solitude swept back like a huge wave. He could feel it high as the trees, higher. The world was immense. A sudden gust of wind through the trees made all his limbs tingle as he held on tight. The ruin of this past year. Ha! Tag yourself. That's me. I'm the ruin of the past year. There's this other writer that's included in this named Octave Mirabeau, and he wrote this scandalous novel called The Diary of a Chambermaid. It's been turned into a movie by, I want to say Renoir, and by Buñuel, the surrealist. So that's freaking awesome. But this was an interesting thing. It allowed more philosophical ideas to come into the story, this character. It really is just a day, kind of hour by hour, of life around the Monet household. But the emphasis is always on light and the way the light clings to everything, and it's beautiful. I read that this author's family fled Germany in 1939 because, it was literally for their lives. The Nazis were on them. And her dad's business was destroyed during Kristallnacht, the infamous night where the Nazi goons smashed all the Jewish storefronts. The endless continuum of days. Monet would pay a farmer to strip a tree of its leaves so it could match what he was painting. That's so particular. I don't love that. Poor trees. Voltaire reference. Time to cultivate my own back garden. This bulk of bluish shadow set off by an aura of light. What? So his first wife had stood in his young stepdaughter's shadow, and now poor Suzanne had herself melted into air, leaving echoes, traces in the faces which still sat round the table. Where lawn and flower beds still lay in sunshine, the light had changed to a soft golden luminosity. It had an edge to it, a glow, and insects hovering about. Above, bright flowers were lit up like jewels in an illuminated showcase. Down by the lily pond, the willow tree at the far end stood in a blaze of yellow sunlight, turning its leaves pale, almost without color, stirring fingers of light, whilst under the bridge the water now looked darker, deeper. A dragonfly moved from sunlight to shadow, and the line of poplars had become a wall of blue shadow between afternoon and evening, sunlight and shadow. Well, down on the farm, we call that good writing. Did I mention that down on the farm we call that good writing? We call that good writing, and we serve it up hot. Yes, we do. The curved bridge over the lily pond. I was thinking as I read that, that's this book. This book is the bridge over the pond in one of Monet's paintings. And it is. It's just like this pleasant afternoon experience. Even though there are dark undertones to it, there's like people's real angst, like the angst of children. And Monet's stepdaughter, who's kind of worried she's just never going to find love and always be taking care of other people's kids. And yeah, so she escaped to England in 1939 as a kid, became a writer. Her kids became writers. She died in 2012. Sad. But I was thinking about that today, and I was like, I'm still reading her book. That's really, that really is amazing about art. And it made me think, like, I'm going to have those moments in the future. Someone, somewhere. What is it? What's that Sappho fragment? You may forget, but somewhere, someone, sometime will think of us. Something like that. A Day in the Life of Claude Monet in the Summer of 1900, a luminous prose poem of a novel, unhurried, richly descriptive, rarely ornamental or excessive, indeed a kind of impressionism in words. Yeah, this is the second time I've read this book. It's time for the project. And I really enjoyed it, and I was like looking forward to it because I remembered it fondly. I remembered it sparked conversations, like Monet has fans. I read it, I was reading it in public once, and like 2 or 3 people came up to me to say either about the book or about Monet. This was near college, but still. As always, by people, I mean cats, and by talk to me, I mean telepathically beamed at me. The kitties love to tell me their plans with their brainwaves. And their book recommends. Remember this channel's guarantee, I will go insane and forget how to speak by the end of my time here with you all. I'm not getting out of this channel alive, This is going to take me down. You'll see my death throes. Not literally, but figuratively, as my mind crumbles. That's the channel guarantee. It's a nice quote. Light seems almost a collaboration between Figes and Monet, as if she had picked up his brushes and he her pen, each medium enlarging the effect of the other, so that by the end of this sensitive novel, we have fresh perspective on both art and literature. Yeah, it's like a Richard Linklater movie, just moving through the day. It's like Slacker, but in Monet times. Which I've wanted to do a Slacker type movie about Dostoevsky's characters, like just moving all over St. Petersburg a day, and you see like Raskolnikov and the Brothers Karamazov, and give them like an MCU that's all there. You see their stories all at some point from everything Dostoevsky's written. I think that'd be so fun. Set it in St. Petersburg during the 1860s or something. But film it like Linklater filmed Slacker, where it feels very on the go. But this kind of feels like that with Monet's life. You get Monet, his wife, kids, stepkids, grandkids, servants, a couple of randos, I think. And, you get a variety of people. And usually you can tell when you switch. Sometimes it's a little blurrier. But it's very dreamy and impressionistic. I was reminded a little bit of Virginia Woolf's The Waves a little bit, which gives you the inner consciousnesses of 6 different characters, missing a 7th, and just over the course of their whole lifetimes. That's such a good book, The Waves by Virginia Woolf, one of my favorites. Like, I read that book and I was immediately like, this is one of my favorites. But this is very much like in that tradition and feel and style where you just like want to be with good prose. I was reading passages to my 15-year-old daughter while she was getting some driving hours in yesterday in the car, Sonora, and she's like, yeah, that book sounds kind of good actually. So the youth approves. This is Skibbity approved Gen Alpha approved. No, she's like Gen Z, just the very end of Gen Z. And though light still shone in the western sky, streaking the horizon with green and gold, the earth had now sunk under a sea of shadow, become part of another element, continuous with the darkening sky overhead. Nothing could halt this process as it gradually became impossible to distinguish leaf from branch, water from rock, even the house from the hill slope behind it. Oh, and this comes after an interesting passage where this little girl, Monet's grandkid, lets a red balloon go. No, that did evoke that old short film in my mind. I thought how it made an interesting focal point. You know, suddenly your attention is drawn away from the scene to this fixed point. Like the dot on an albatross's beak. I don't know, just this isolated thing that pulls you away in this cinematic way. And then you're directed up even farther to a star. There's just such a cool sense of place in this book. She really wrote a very neat book. This was her 8th out of 14 novels, but she also wrote social and literary criticism and works of memoir. Looks like her last book was a work of memoir, published like a year or two before she died. It says her novel, Waking, was highly praised. Published in England. Well, this is a good one. I'm thinking like pretty much all the books in this case are going to be good because I kept them all out of my previously much larger collection for reasons, or I added them for reasons. Even now it's being refined. Like A Prayer for Owen Meany, it just quietly disappeared. I don't want to reread that a third time, you know, and kind of fell out of love with it last time. Maybe it's all right. But when this case is done, I'm going to only keep the good stuff. Like if I read a book for this project and it sucks, I'm not going to keep it, you know, I'll get rid of it. And so by the end, this case is going to be a thing of beauty and a joy forever. And it'll run for president and it'll do a great job because it'll win. What's the patriotic song? Dun, dun, dun. Or that's Wedding. Or Graduation's that old Kingly March. Whatever. Anyway, believe it or not, this bookcase will one day rule us all. I mean, just look at the books in here. I think this bookcase will do a great job. Like it or not, that is our destiny. I've been touched with the gift of Apollo for just a moment. Yep, so lights back in this case. Look, there's 2 I've read there. Hey, there's 2 I've read there. We're chipping away, you know? Life's a journey, not a destination. You know, that's just true. Not my favorite song. That is a fact. Because if you make it all about the destination, then you're just always like, we gotta get done. And you look back and you're like, that was super fun, and I just rushed through it, you know? This is a Chester A. Arthur model that my son made a long time ago for a school project. And he's endorsing the book Light. So, you know, that guy was literally president. So you should probably listen to him. And, you know, if you see this book like in a thrift store or like a used bookstore, just grab it, you know, get it. Because Chester A. Arthur says you should read it. And I don't want to call your patriotism into question or anything like that, but you know, you might want to just think about it yourself if you're going against this president who tells you what to do. Okay, obey him. We really don't want to tick him off. Not since he learned how to dream walk. Anyway, this is a good book. It's a good book. I really got a lot of pleasure out of it. I forced my students to listen to quotes from it today. You know, they were doing reading of their own, and I thought it's important that I interrupt them. This book also serves as a reminder for me that like every decade has good works, and in our attempts to be well-rounded readers and whatnot, for whatever reason, even though we're all going to die and nothing matters, it's important to remember each decade, you know, each decade. Like there's a lot of really cool books from the 80s, 90s, you know, every decade. And if you're always like trying to read widely, it'll just broaden who you are. I'm just joking with all that dark stuff. It's a joke. I mean, yes, I wrestle with the same duality that we all wrestle with. You know, to be or not to be, that is the question, all right? But ultimately, I agree with Kurt Vonnegut's tombstone that everything was beautiful and nothing hurt. Life is a miracle, and this book's a sweet little reminder of that. I felt I felt that. I thought about light more, and I looked at light more afterwards. I photographed light like 5 times today. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm always thinking about that stuff. Gotta love light, you know? Good old light. But Light the book is also good. And Life's a Miracle and whatnot. All that hippie stuff, it's true. You know? I wrote this song that I just can't get out of my head. And I figure, like, I think if I've had it stuck in my head for like a year, that I'm going to do something with it. And it's just like about how much I love everything. That's my real self. And then I've got songs that are like the opposite of that. The duality of man, sir. Y'all, you don't have to read this book, but read something good. Find great stuff, you know? And it's cool that we talk about books and stuff online. We reach out to each other. You know, that's a good thing. We're having like some sort of a social web of contact, you know? I read comments. I comment back. It's cool. Once I picked up this like hand-printed zine at a truck stop in Montana, and it was all about how barcodes were evil and 666s were hidden in them. And if you've ever seen the music video, Kathy Don't Go, made by a cult, it's fantastic. It's all about how the barcode is going to be the 666 thing. And I laugh at them because it's QR codes, right? Haha, just kidding. It's literal chips implanted in your hand by Google 10 years from now, probably. Or nothing. Technology is crazy. And you can feel technology coming even in this book, you know, automobiles, trains, people tearing down orchards to build factories. Yeah, you know, read this beautiful book. It's good stuff. It is. It is a luminous prose poem of a novel. I enjoyed my time with this book. It's crazy when you read a book twice and you're like, I'm definitely going to read that again. You know, seek out beautiful writing. If I hadn't already picked The Secret Share to reread every month of this year, I would have picked this. In fact, if I remember, I'll do this. I'll read this one every month of 2026. That's how good I think it is. I think it's very good. And cool artsy strangers will talk to you if you read it in a public place. I found out from my previous reading, as I said. And you know, that's just sad. But a reminder of our own mortality, maybe. Maybe a little tape in this in order. All right. If anyone out there has read this book, I'd love to hear your comments on it too. You know, I'll tag this so maybe people that have read it will find this. But I hope this book has a little fandom. I suspect it might because I see it around on thrift store and used bookstore shelves. It seems to have a life. I mean, the connection with Monet really helps because that's a beloved painter whose work lives on. Or maybe she's got like a whole readership at like UMass Amherst or something. We're all over. I don't know all the worlds of the Readosphere, you know? You know, this video is getting long, but I think that represents a feeling that I had about this book. I like don't want to leave it, you know? I've enjoyed it. If this book were 1,000 pages long, I'd still read that book. That'd be awesome. Whoa, that would be cool. Has there ever been a book like that? What's Duck's Newburyport like? I've heard of that one. Is that lyrical like that? I think that might be. I've heard that's a long maximalist work written by a woman in the last like decade. I remember when one of my older brother's first books was published, somebody said, this book was so sensitive, it was as if it was written by a woman, which is a weird comment for a reviewer to say. But also, when I think about it, like, that's a really good compliment, you know? Like, somebody thought my brother had lyrical tendencies. And he did. He does. When I read his books, I totally get that sense from them. My brother again is Albert Sky. Motorcycles going by. Oh yeah, there's helium balloons mentioned in this, given in a park. And maybe do a whole bunch of research. It might have been a hydrogen balloon. But rubber balloons existed as early as like 1825 for popular purchase. That's interesting. I'd like to see like a photo history of that, which I would never have thought before looking that up from reading this. I sure would love a photo history of balloons. Boy, why doesn't someone put that book together? Not just any kind of balloon, like party balloons. But I would appreciate a book like that because there's only so many websites and they're kind of partial, I thought. All right, let's finish this video by opening this up to our fortune. The leaves and branches moved, green on darker green, shadow on shadow, rising right up to the clear blue sky. So we're going to continue to grow and coexist, shadow on shadow, recognize and accept darknesses, rising right up into the clear blue sky, ultimately finding freedom. air, life-giving oxygen. Metaphorically, yeah. So that's our fortune. That's pretty good. And Nostradamus told me this works in a dream, so gotta accept that. No, that's a lie. Well, yeah, pick this book up, If you're the kind of person that buys stuff online through like thrift books, source your books ethically, I would advise if you would. But you know what? Live your best life. You do you. We all make deals with the devil. And on one level, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. No one's gotten into the good place in hundreds of years, to quote that show. Every purchase is fraught with moral implications. But, yeah, I think this book would even be worth seeking out. I mean, if you like Monet, yeah, you got to read this. But if you like Impressionism, you should read this. If you like depictions of light, you should read this and James Agee, who describes it very well. What is light even? A wave, a particle, both? How does it move so fast? Why can't anything go faster than it? What does it have to do with time? The universe is expanding at a faster speed than the speed of light, but I thought nothing could go faster than light. I saw this sign that said, but what's the speed of dark? But that's actually a good question. How strange it is to be anything at all, to quote that lyric for the gazillionth time of my life, because it's true. All right, well, read beautiful stuff, be expanded, feeling better and like a bigger, more capacious spirit, after you read something, that's powerful. That's kind of a revolutionary little mini act. That's way cool. Maybe I'll read more books by this writer. I once met a homeless guy who was just reading Crime and Punishment over and over, living by a dumpster behind a Hobby Lobby. So maybe I'll go do that with this book. Just read it over and over, live by the dumpster. I mean, it's just that, it's the kind of book. No, it's not exactly that kind of book. But it would be a great blurb for a book's jacket. I loved it so much, I don't know, goofy and tired, maybe a little hungry. I gotta eat something. All right, well, hope you're all doing good. Light's a cool book. It's a good book. I feel altered by it. I feel like I have things to say about it. I could quote even more out of it. I marked it up a lot, but, just check it out sometime. I've got limited attention spans. I know it. I see when y'all check out of the videos. I get it. It's cool. I understand. My favorite thing is to chase shiny baubles over the hills. Wait, what was I doing? And I run away and no one ever sees me again. So I understand. Also, I mean, come on. This is like a barely visual channel. This is taking Norwegian slow TV, if you've heard of that, to some real limits. But BookTube's a thing, and a lot of people do this. Most people are on camera, but I don't know. I thought I'd eschew that. Focus on the books. Plus, I have 3 eyes, and I'm really self-conscious about that. The third eye's weird. It's like in the middle of my cheek. It's strange. It's always looking like kind of randomly off to the side. Sometimes it just cries. I don't know. I don't know what's up with that one. I'd rather not be, seen. And of course the prison tats. You don't need to know how many people I've killed, all right? You just don't need to know. It's a book channel. We review books here. And that's cool. Talk about books. It's not a shanking channel. It's not where we tell those stories. I'm kidding. I've never been to prison. I don't know. It's fine to joke around, right? I feel like people don't joke around enough. I'm frequently discovering that many adults I interact with don't joke around much. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm just not going to apply for that opening in the department then. All right. I'm going to go do some yard work at my kid's mom's house. Hope y'all doing good. Chill out. A lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. We might not have a Department of Education anymore. Well, that probably won't affect me as a teacher. I'm sure that everything's cool. I try to not so much educate the youth as get them to go hike the Appalachian Trail. I'm always like, as soon as you're done with school, or even before, you should just go hike the Appalachian Trail. My brother dropped out of school to hike the Appalachian Trail. No, I'm just kidding. I've never told that story to students. But when I taught at a for-profit college, I really pushed that agenda. Then I had no compunction against it. Why not? But no one ever did. All right. But, this is a good book. Check it out. Sorry. I think I should eat before I record these because I'm feeling a little loopy. All right. It's a good book. Check it out, everybody. Eat 3 square meals a day. Don't meal skip. It messes with your blood sugar levels, whoever you are, and can create bad patterns in your health. And now you know. And the little star goes across the screen. All right. Bye, everybody.